the way this primary is shaping up makes me very worrisome for the gubernatorial primary, because I see the same behaviors from the New Jersey GOP that happened during the other primary. And like I said, I was supported Rizzo. I worked really hard for Rizzo. And Montague went for Rizzo, my hometown, my town. But I also expected people to bury the gauntlet, so to speak, and move on and be part of the general, behind whomever won the primary. And I was a little naive in that expectation, because I don't believe that that's what happened. And I do believe there was wrongdoing within the election process. But I think that if we unite together as a conservative movement, and we bring along those people who went for other people during the primary, we are a lot more likely to win than our odds were going into November of 2021. So
Right.
that's I don't know if that kind of sets you up on any questions or anything that you want to go over.
No, that's pretty much how I've come to terms as well when it comes to party politics. I'm all for game if people want a primary and debates and all about that. After the primary, if you're a party player and you're with the party, the whole conservative movement, if that's the way you walk and the way you talk, it makes no sense not to vote for the party in the general. You vote for the person in the primary and you vote for the party in the general. Dawn Fantasia choosing Michael Ignagnamort was the red flag that deserved the primary, and they got it with Josh Akins and Jason Sarnowski.
Yeah.
I myself am split just because of the accomplished work that we have done up here in Northwest New Jersey, with Dawn Fantasia being the leader and Josh Akins with the anti-state sanctuary resolutions and the
Right.
Second Amendment ones. For instance, Jason Sarnowski did not join us, and he would not join us. But bygones be bygones. I'm pretty sure he's a strong. I'm hoping he'd be strong. Things like that make me think that Jason's not going to be strong. If he
See, but Ryan, the other side of that is, here you have Dawn waving the rainbow flag and acquiescing to the pressures of the rainbow waving community. And I'm sorry, but it doesn't belong on our government institutions. No, I don't get to go put up a "Don't Tread on Me" flag once a year, for a whole month. And I think that I think all of these politicians, what I've learned is that they pick and choose their battles. And she chose to give in to the LGBTQ rainbow flag, and he chose not to take on the sanctuary issue. And I'm not sure why. I would actually have to ask him that. I don't know him well, but what I have seen, heard, and spoken of, I do believe he, has found strength under Josh. And I believe he's gotten some strength and empowerment, if you will, in his election from people like Bill Hayden and myself and others who we're obviously strongly conservative and have been outspoken for the last better part of 3 years now. And kind of like the way Trump woke up DC and you had Senator, like, I love Senator Ted Cruz, but I felt like he had kind of become part of the establishment because he wasn't doing things. And literally throughout the 4 years, Trump really unleashed a lot of these hardcore conservatives to start being more outspoken. And I think the primary is the place to do that, to kind of bring it back to the local level. I think Dawn Fantasia did a great job. Social media, she was excellent at that. With her other claim to fame, or thing that she really fought hard on, was the nursing homes. But this is my take on the nursing home, having been a Sussex County resident, both back in my teenage years and for the last 20 years. That nursing home was always known as a death trap. It wasn't just COVID. I mean, that
Mhm.
nursing home had the worst record, and the only people who went in there were the people who couldn't afford anything else, literally state dependent people.
Right, veterans and those elderly without people taking care of
Yep.
them.
You know, my daughter's grandmother had to go in there, and I was sick to my stomach. Not my mother, her
Mm.
father's mother.
Mm.
And so that was, like, I applaud her for taking on Murphy and the decision to send people back into the nursing homes, because that was the decision that kind of was the icing on the cake for that Andover subacute center. But the Andover subacute center was a horrific facility before COVID ever was a thought in our minds. And
Mhm.
so I kind of think she ignored that in the years that she could have paid attention to it. Although, and she didn't. You know, she waited until it was a politically opportune time to score, and her social media savviness, she was able to really promote her voice on that. And so it's good, but I can't give her all the credit on it.
Yeah, I hear
Um,
you.
and meanwhile, uh, you know, like Bill Hayden, like, so it was funny because Dawn was out there on social media calling out Murphy, but then you
Hmm.
have Hayden, who's now a commissioner,
Yeah, well,
and he used social media to let people know, hey, I'm not supporting um, a resolution that's going to say no to the black box, which is an invasion on our privacy rights. But in that, embedded in that resolution is a yes to higher taxes. And that was all Dawn's baby. She supported the gas tax in that resolution.
right.
It was,
But I watched Bill Hayden for years. I worked with him as early as 2018 as well, and I would like to speak on him in a matter as well. But if you want to finish up
yeah.
real quick,
No, so
for
it just goes back to, I know you say you're split between, like looking
mhm.
at the votes, and obviously, everyone gets to cast their vote in the primary. I'm just hoping that we get the two most conservatives forward, because this is our chance to make that grassroots voice heard. Like,
Mhm.
I feel like the LD 24, if Sarnowski and Josh both get the nod from the voters, then the GOP in New Jersey has to start paying attention, because if we don't, if they don't, then they're going to hand these areas over to the Democrats, because
Mhm.
they're not going to strengthen these numbers. And we're going to consistently look at elections that, like what happened with Scott Garrett. We're once we lost Scott Garrett's seat, we haven't been able to get it back. And and
Do you think we lost
that
Scott Garrett's seat because Republicans agree with gay marriage?
do we, because Republicans agree with it?
Right. They
Yeah,
didn't.
no,
They
I
did
do.
not vote
Yeah,
for Scott
Ryan.
Garrett because Scott Garrett
Right.
was against gay marriage. So Republicans
Yeah.
voted because Republicans are liberal.
Yeah. Well, because we've lost our church. I realize now, because that was the beginning of a slippery slope.
Hmm.
And I don't know if we can go back to reclaiming our, grassroots conservative Christian values,
Right.
because we so much of the population isn't doesn't connect with that. They don't
Right.
worship, or they don't believe that God punishes that. And that's the
Right.
church's fault.
Right.
The churches
And
don't
ours, yeah.
condemn it.
Hmm. Right. No, I agree with
So,
you 100% of how you're saying that too. You're exact. I'm on the same wavelength. Is that like, yeah, that's probably the reason why. But like, the population of New Jersey kind of changed. I went to the parents' rally. I was the only. I'm 30 years old. Was the youngest one there by far. They're not gonna do that the way Scott Garrett did it, because they
yeah.
want to get reelected, and they think the same thing with vote by mail. We support now vote by mail
Yes.
because we want to get rid of it. So we support it to
Yeah. Well,
win to get rid of it.
it's exactly, it's so when
I don't think it's
when the
gonna work like
battlefield is laid.
that.
But when the no, well, and I don't either. But I also, because I remember I remember when Jack said to me, vote by mail's here to stay. And I just looked at him like, please don't say that.
Mm-hmm.
But yet it's true, because unless we change Trenton, nothing's going to change vote by mail.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even with all the evidence that there's, like once you separate the envelope from the ballot, that there's no way to trace that ballot and attach that ballot, and
Mm-hmm.
everything that's out there, no one's changing it. Pennsylvania the same way.
Yeah,
you
right.
know um and what's worse is,
That was Doug
now,
Mastriano.
I don't know if the federal government, what's that?
Doug Mastriano, the great patriot. 2019, he voted for that Act 77, the vote by mail,
Yeah.
and then he was against it. I understand, but everyone made the unanimous Republican vote for Pennsylvania in 2019 for vote by mail. Pretty
Right,
remarkable.
and then it ended up biting him in the ass,
Right, and that's the
because
same
they
way
were
that
because the
it's the same way that New Jersey
yeah.
Republicans get bit in the ass. They voted for, like, in my speech, I don't know if you caught the YouTube, but I said that Republicans voted for high school LGBT curriculum, and it bit them in the ass when the Democrats came back with, okay, we amended it K through 12, and there's nothing they could do for it.
Right. Well,
Then
and then
there's people like
and
Brian
you're
Bergen who voted for
absolutely right.
that.
Right. Exactly. And then you got, like, well, that's the thing with I called Bergen out on his post the other day. He's supporting Dawn, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm disappointed to hear this, because you're a fighter. Like, he's been on the floor in Trenton at the State House, and he's fought. But it's a day late, a dollar short, when you support someone who's willing to put a rainbow flag up on our government institutions.
Yeah, he voted on Black Lives
It's
Matter Day
just,
too.
I don't agree with that. I think she's way off base, and it's just pandering more. So in a primary, I'll vote her. What's that?
I said Bergen voted for Black
I
Lives
missed
Matter
that. What
Day
was that?
too.
Oh, wonderful. The June 19th.
No, Testa voted for that in the Senate, but for the
I think my
Assembly,
signal's getting.
Bergen voted for Black Lives Matter Day, an actual mark.
Okay, so I heard you say that Brian Bergen called you, but that was the last part I heard.
Yeah, this was actually 2 years ago. He got reelected on all this. He called me because I was reporting on it and blasting it all over the internet that it wasn't a lot of Republicans that voted yes. Plenty abstained and plenty voted no. He voted yes. And as well as Antoine McClellan's Eric Simonson down in LD1. And this was the same time that Mike Testa marched with Black Lives Matter and voted on the Juneteenth bill. This was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And they just say I'm like a liar, I'm a troll. It's public information. Their vote. It's a vote.
Right. Yeah.
And but I want to go off on a little rant and then get your opinion.
Okay. Sure.
So whenever I talk about Barbara Holstein or her name comes up, I remind everybody that I have this clip of you standing up to Black Lives Matter. And I mention this so often because I don't see this anywhere. And America has not seen people stand up to Antifa and Black Lives Matter. So I'll play that right now.
Black Lives Matter! Take a knee! Take a knee!
So the Republican primary in New Jersey, past, present, and future, we've been discussing it briefly. I want to go through my experience since 2018 when I started NJ1ST. It's real brief. 2017 was the gubernatorial run for Murphy. He got in. The Massachusetts guy got in New Jersey. And right away in 2018, I saw Jack Ciattarelli running for 2021. And he did it every single year after that. And he supported Republican candidates all around the state. He was doing great in that regard. And then maybe a year after, I realized there's a big corner of the NJGOP that didn't like Jack, that they wanted to primary him, that they were all against him, and they had some real good claims of why. And that was all the way up until about 2020, Trump's second run. I went with Trump on his campaign. But in New Jersey, they were preparing for the 2021 gubernatorial run. But it was basically Jack. Jack was the guy. In 2020, Hirsch Singh was running for Senate, and he was battling it out with Rick Mehta. So there was primaries in New Jersey going on. Nobody was really thinking about 2021, just hoping someone would primary Jack. Who was it going to be? Nobody knows. And 2020 ended with Hirsch Singh losing, and he didn't even announce his 2021 gubernatorial run until 2021 started, as well as Phil Rizzo did not start his campaign until 2021 started. He today goes around telling people the truth, in that it was just I have the tweet right here. He answered Chris Russell, one of the NJGOP Jack Ciattarelli's consultants, that he says, quote, "I may or may not be the answer. My gubernatorial campaign was a whole 4 months, yet it was enough to keep your boy under 50% in the primary." Now, whether or not that's true, that there is people pushing back against Jack and willing and wanting to primary him, 4 months for a gubernatorial campaign, let alone any campaign, is not only embarrassing, but it's prophetic. We know what's going to happen. You have 4 months to prepare, get your name awareness, money. I didn't really realize it was that short of a gubernatorial run. But I did pay attention to the primary, and this is where I want to bring in Bill Hayden, because he's now a commissioner, but it was before he was a commissioner. And before he was a commissioner, I worked with him on a lot of things in public, right next to him, standing side by sard. I mentioned before Don Fantasia with the Sussex County Freeholders. We did the resolutions. That was with Bill Hayden, and also Herb Yardley. I'm going to side table that. But it was successful. We did great work. And then the 2020 campaign for Trump was coming around. Everybody was on the Trump campaign, basically. 2021, we expected the conservatives to primary Jack. And a lot of them did. But like myself, I wanted people to primary Jack. I want a primary. And I now understand, and after the primary, choose the party pick in the general, so you have a chance against the Democrats. But there were people who are supposed to be primarying Jack Ciattarelli that were actually in favor of him, like Bill. I wanted to primary Jack, and he considered me a Democrat operative.
I love how they threw that word around.
But it's interesting and weird. He was successful in getting the commissioner, Sussex commissioner pick after that. But I wonder if he's interested in primarying Jack this go around. Now, do you think we should even primary Jack with Bill Spadia? Or do you think we should just all get behind Jack? I'm wondering your opinion.
Okay, so for gubernatorial and the gubernatorial run against Jack, I definitely at this time, and have been since I helped Jack with the general in 21, said that I would support Jack, and I've seen nothing from anyone else that makes me want to abandon that. Do I think Jack deserves, like somebody should primary him? A primary is meant to put the best man forward, so to speak. And that's with all the resources that each one of them has. So if, whomever comes out, a lot of people want to try to say, oh, well, this party line or that party line. And that's true. But if you've done the work, and as you noted in what you were talking about, Ryan, you've been following this even longer than I have. And I have to say, you're always very articulate and impressive. And you definitely have that because you told me you're 30 now, so you're going back into your early 20s and mid 20s. Mm-hmm. So it's for someone that's myself, that's 53, I love it to see someone young and so involved, because when I was your age, I wasn't. I just kind of went along with the headlines.
I do appreciate that.
You're welcome.
For Bill Hayden, I still support him. I see people posting saying he's a fake conservative, fake patriot, just because he's not supporting a certain candidate. That's complete hogwash. I know Bill's words, his thoughts, his morals. So I'm wondering if maybe his strategy was the correct one. He supported Jack in the primary, did not support anyone primarying Jack, and he was able to ride that wave to Sussex County Commissioner. Now he's in a position of power. That's what he wanted. He doesn't, no candidate really owns him. He's master of his own realm.
Yeah, no, nobody will ever own Bill Hayden.
So
that much I do know.
Is that maybe a strategy to just get behind Jack, even though, you might not agree with him? I don't know about that myself, but it looked like it worked for Bill.
This is the way I would see it. I first of all, I think having walked the streets with Jack in Newark and Union County, and some other places for that general election, I saw a side of Jack that I did not know during the primary because I didn't support him in the primary. People are going to challenge him. Spadia may very well be the one that's probably a big challenge because Spadia's got his name out there more. And Spadia's been working it more, not that 4-month type of campaign. Right. However, I believe that Jack has developed enough of a conservative following that he will win a primary. I think there's no doubt about that. And what I would like to see is an effort to make sure that primary wave rides through to the general and people stay involved and realize that. And I think even yourself and myself included, when you're really looking at that grassroots, we're hardcore. We follow the politics. The majority of our state does not. The majority of, especially New Jersey, because even though you look at the map, it's all red. The density is where the numbers are, and and they're blue. Right. And as you know, so a Jack is going to do better. Right. I don't even know but this is the difference. Now this is interesting. I don't know if you'll find it, but Spadia is not a hardcore conservative.
Correct. I actually commented on Friedman's, or one of the Politico reporters calling him a far right extremist conspiracy. I'm like, no.
Yeah, no. If you've listened to his show over the years, he's a medical freedom person, but I don't think that he would get 100% rating from the NRA.
Right, even things like that, right?
On Second Amendment, because I do believe he's actually supported, red flag laws and background checks and all the things that the extreme Second Amendment people are vehemently against. But yet in New Jersey, that won't fly. There is not enough of a population here that has been raised with that mentality. And you could go all the way up to 50 and 60-year-old people. They don't understand. As far as the primary, look, the primary is the time where people are supposed to get out and put their best foot forward and show us why we should give them our support. I think that Jack will do that, and I think he'll do it over tenfold. I know that he's been a huge supporter of Carlos Santos. And I mentioned to you Carlos before. Carlos got involved in politics because of Trump and the truck rallies, the truck parades that we were doing. And he went from there to working with one of his mountains. So he was recruited to the Mountainside Republican Committee. Union County is the third largest county in the state. It has Republicans there that haven't voted in years because no one's leading them.
That's John Bramnick's fault.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It is 100%. And that is one guy that I would absolutely have to hold my nose for and wouldn't do anything to lift a finger to help him get there.
So here's something I can ask you. Are you a part of a Republican committee or some sort?
Yeah.
All right. Because I've asked this question before.
I'm my committee person.
Say it again.
I'm the committee person for my district in Montague.
I've talked to other people too who vehemently don't like John Bramnick, are so against him, all this, and they're on committees too. It'd be very interesting. It would be very politically conservative, all this, if someone censored him. CENCURED.
Yeah. Censured, yes.
Right. Because I still can't, like, he's said some pretty crazy stuff about Marjorie Taylor Greene, about Donald Trump, that now is just not true. He just lied. He took the bait of the Democrats.
Right.
It'd be interesting if someone stood
Well,
up and censured them.
it would, on that censure thing, censure and ethics violations.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, they're such a waste of time in some ways because it takes forever to get them done.
Mm-hmm.
I would just rather see him removed by committee. Jill Space still holds state committee woman for Sussex County, and I want that spot, and people know I want it.
Oh.
She won't
Nice.
resign.
She won't resign, you said?
Yeah, she won't step down even though she's a commissioner.